Have you ever had one small place in your home that holds so many memories? A chair, a corner, a window. Sometimes the quietest places in our lives keep the loudest feelings. In today's story, we'll meet a woman who spent years sitting by her window, watching the world, remembering her life, and finding peace in the simplest things. This story will help you practice your English listening and speaking, and it might also remind you of something in your own life. So relax, listen carefully, and stay with me till the end, because in that chair, something beautiful happens. My name is Clara. I live in a small house at the end of a quiet street. I've lived here for more than 40 years. In my living room, there's an old wooden chair by the window. The paint is a little cracked, and the cushion is soft from years of use. But to me, it's the most special place in the world. Every morning, I make a cup of tea, open the window just a little, and sit there, in my chair. From that spot, I can see everything that matters to me. The little park across the street, the bakery where I used to buy fresh bread, the big tree that changes colors with every season. It's funny. The world outside keeps changing, but my chair has always stayed the same. Sometimes I sit there and remember my husband, Daniel. He used to read the newspaper beside me, his glasses always sliding down his nose. We didn't talk much in the mornings. We didn't have to. The sound of him turning pages was enough. When he passed away, the house felt too big. I thought about moving, but I couldn't. I didn't want to leave the window, our window, so I stayed. And every morning I sat in that same chair, holding my tea with both hands, watching life go on. Children grew up, new families moved in. Sometimes people waved at me as they passed. They probably thought I was just an old woman watching the street. But to me, it was more. That chair was my way of remembering and of still feeling part of the world. One spring morning, I noticed a moving truck outside. A young woman was carrying boxes, laughing, trying to balance a plant in one hand and her phone in the other. Her name was Maya. She had just moved in next door. For the first few weeks, I only saw her from my window. Sometimes she looked tired when she came home from work. Other times, she stood outside in the evening light, just thinking. One afternoon, she saw me through the window and waved. I smiled and waved back. That small moment, a simple wave, warmed my heart more than I expected. A few days later, there was a knock on my door. When I opened the door, Maya was standing there holding a small plate covered with foil. "Hi, Mrs. Clara," she said shyly. "I baked too many cookies. Would you like some?" Her smile was warm, like spring sunlight. I hadn't had a visitor in weeks. "Oh, that's very kind of you," I said, smiling. Come in, come in." She stepped inside, looking around the living room. Her eyes stopped at the chair by the window. "It looks so cozy," she said softly. "Do you sit there every day?" I nodded. "Every morning," I said. "It's my favorite place." We sat down together, me in my chair, her on the couch. The cookies smelled of butter and vanilla. They tasted like kindness. That was how it started. Every now and then, Maya would stop by, sometimes after work, sometimes on weekends. We would drink tea, talk about little things, weather, neighbors, memories. At first, she mostly listened, but slowly, she began to share too. She told me she had moved to this town for a new job, a job she wasn't sure she liked. She missed her mother, who lived far away, and she often felt lonely, even when she was not alone. I smiled gently and said, "You know, loneliness is funny. It visits everyone, even when we're not alone." She looked at me quietly, her eyes softening. I could tell she understood. Spring turned to summer. The tree outside my window grew thick with green leaves, and the air smelled of fresh rain. Maya began watering my small garden when she visited. One afternoon, She came in carrying 2 cups of iced tea. "I made these," she said proudly. "It's too hot for your usual one." We sat together by the window, the sun spilling across the floor. Outside, children laughed and chased each other with balloons. "You have a lovely view," she said. I smiled. "It's not much, but it's enough. This window has watched my whole life." She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" I looked outside, then back at her. "Well, I've watched people grow up. I've seen goodbyes, new beginnings, love, and even loss, all from this spot. It's like life passes through this window every day." One rainy evening, as thunder rolled in the distance, I found an old box under my bed. Inside were letters from Daniel, my late husband. His handwriting was messy, but full of love. Each word brought him back for a moment. Maya stopped by that evening, soaked from the rain. I made us tea and showed her one of the letters. She read it quietly, then looked up. "He loved you so much," she said softly. "Yes," I smiled, "and I still love him. But love doesn't always stay in the same form. Sometimes it becomes memory. And that's okay too." We sat there in silence, listening to the rain hit the window. She rested her head on the couch, and I could feel her peace. As months passed, Maya became like family. She'd bring groceries, help me fix small things, and stay for stories. She said she liked how calm my home felt, how peaceful everything was. One morning, I woke up feeling weaker than usual. My steps were slow, and the sunlight felt heavier somehow. Maya noticed it too. She came over right away bringing soup and medicine. "Promise me you'll rest," she said, her voice full of worry. I smiled faintly. "Don't worry, dear. I just need a little time." She sat beside me, holding my hand. For the first time, I realized something. The chair by the window wasn't just mine anymore. It had become ours. Autumn arrived quietly. Leaves fell like whispers, painting the street in gold and brown. The park looked beautiful, calm and old, like a painting. I spent my mornings telling Maya stories about my childhood, about the first time I met Daniel, how we danced in the kitchen when it rained, and how we built this house with our own hands. She listened carefully, sometimes laughing, sometimes tearing up. "You've lived such a full life," she said once. I smiled. "I've lived a real one. Not perfect, but real." One morning, Maya came in with a wrapped box. "It's for you," she said, smiling. Inside was a small painting of me sitting in my chair by the window, tea in hand, all light all around. Her brush strokes were simple but full of heart. "Oh, Maya," I whispered, touched. "It's beautiful. I wanted you to have it, so even when you're not here, you'll still be by the window." I felt my eyes fill with tears. I hugged her, something I rarely did. Winter came slowly that year. The mornings were cold, and my tea cooled faster than before. But the light was still beautiful. On one quiet morning, I sat in my chair longer than usual. The world outside was silent, covered in a thin layer of snow. It looked peaceful, like everything had paused to breathe. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Thank you." For the house, for the memories, for Maya, for everything. And in that calm, I felt warmth, not from the sun, but from every life that had ever touched mine. When Maya came that morning, she found me sleeping peacefully, my hands resting on my lap. The tea beside me had grown cold. She didn't cry right away. She just stood there, holding her breath, as the morning light filled the room. It felt like I was still there, still sitting in my chair, watching the world. Later, she placed fresh flowers on the windowsill and whispered, "Good morning, Clara." Years later, Maya still lives in the same house next door. She now has a little boy. His name is Daniel. Every morning, she sits by the window with her tea, just like I did. Her son plays near her feet, sometimes looking outside, sometimes looking at her. And when the light hits the window just right, she swears she can still see me, smiling, watching, resting in peace. Sometimes stories aren't about big adventures. Sometimes they're about small chairs, quiet mornings, and the people who remind us we're not alone. Life doesn't always move fast, and that's okay. You can learn English and learn life at the same time, slowly, gently, beautifully. So the next time you sit by a window, breathe in the light, remember someone you love, and whisper, "Thank you for today." If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe and stay with me for more stories to relax, learn English, and feel a little less alone.